12-year-old hero saves plane. Receives unexpected call from the president the next day. The sun hung lazily in the sky over the coastal airport, casting golden rays across the tarmac. Holidaymakers bustled in and out of terminals, some still wearing the carefree clothes of vacation mode. Flip-flops, straw hats, oversized sunglasses. Amidst them was the Thompson family, pulling wheeled suitcases and sipping cold drinks for paper cups. Their skin held the soft glow of time, well spent under the sun. Ethan Thompson adjusted the strap of his carry-on and glanced at his wife, Ava, who was patiently guiding their son, Kai, through the automatic doors of Terminal B. Kai, all of 12, walked with a sense of urgency that didn't match the post-holiday calm of his parents. His white sneakers scuffed along the tiles, one hand gripping the handle of his roller bag, the other clinging to a sketchpad covered in aviation doodles, jet wings, and cockpit layouts. "I hope it's a Boeing 737 this time," Kai said, eyes lighting up. "Last time we flew an A320. Still cool, but the yoke on the 737 is way more satisfying to control. I read that in an article." Ava chuckled. "Sweetheart, as long as it gets us home safely, I don't mind what bird we're on." Kai didn't respond. He was too busy counting gates, trying to guess which aircraft matched their boarding pass. He had already circled the flight number in blue ink and underlined the gate, C-17. He paused and glanced up at a distant plane taxiing to the apron, then flipped to a fresh page in his pad and began sketching. Ethan watched him with quiet pride. "There goes our little pilot." Ava nodded. "He's more than just a dreamer, Ethan. He studies these things." I caught him watching a 3-hour video on how autopilot systems disengage during manual takeovers. He actually took notes. Kai, overhearing this, turned and grinned. "It's called a flight deck, not just the front part, Mom." They all laughed, walking toward security with that familiar bittersweet feeling that comes when vacations end. While most children his age were still buzzing from water slides and arcade games, Kai was dreaming about flaps, rudders, and landing gear mechanisms. Just before they joined the check-in line, Kai looked up at the wide glass window overlooking the runway. A small Cessna took off in the distance, wings tilting gracefully against the breeze. His eyes followed it like a hawk. "One day, I'll be in that pilot's seat. You'll see," he said, almost to himself, but Ava heard. She reached over and gently ran a hand through his hair. "I believe you, Kai. I really do." What none of them knew was that the moment he uttered those words, the universe took note. And very soon, the skies would call on Kai sooner than anyone expected. The cabin filled with the usual shuffle of passengers settling in, seatbelts clicking, overhead bins shutting, voices humming in polite chaos. Kai claimed the window seat, eyes darting over the tarmac like a scout surveying his kingdom. His sketchpad rested in his lap, but for once he wasn't drawing. He was observing, reading the flaps, tracking the pushback tractor, watching ground crew signals like a live tutorial unfolding just for him. Ava leaned toward him. "You okay?" Kai gave a small nod, eyes fixed on the engine blades beginning to rotate. "This part's the best. Everything is about precision." Across the aisle, Maya Singh moved gracefully through her pre-flight checks. Tall, composed, with the calm efficiency of someone used to mid-air emergencies and cranky toddlers, she exuded control. As she passed, Kai glanced up, unable to contain himself. "Excuse me," he said. "Do you know what type of aircraft this is?" Maya paused, amused. "Boeing 737-800. Why? Planning to take over?" "Not today," he replied with a grin. "But maybe someday. I've studied the cockpit layout. I could tell from the shape of the nose and engine mounts." She raised a brow, impressed. "You're not just a fan. You're a future pilot." Kai beamed. "I've memorized most of the systems, the autopilot functions, hydraulic backups, even the APU startup sequence." "Is that so?" Maya asked, crouching slightly. "Tell you what, after takeoff, if the captain isn't too busy, I'll ask if you can peek inside." "Deal." Kai's face lit up. "Deal." Moments later, the engines roared to life. The jet rumbled down the runway, lifting gracefully into the sky. Passengers applauded softly. As the plane climbed through the clouds, Maya kept her word. She returned to Kai's row, motioned for him to follow. Let's see how much of that knowledge you can apply in the real world. Inside the cockpit, soft light from the control panels bathed everything in blue and amber. The captain, a gray-haired man with a calm demeanor, glanced back and offered a warm nod. So, you're the aviation whiz I've been hearing about. Kai stepped closer and all but composed. It's beautiful. The captain smiled. That it is. Maya stood nearby, watching both of them. One a seasoned flyer, the other a hopeful dreamer. The co-pilot gave a quick wave, focused on instruments. Kai's eyes scanned every dial, every toggle switch, mentally matching them to diagrams he knew by heart. Then, something almost unnoticeable happened. The captain paused mid-sentence, bringing a fist to his mouth. A quiet cough. Once. Twice. He waved it off with a reassuring smile, but Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. Kai didn't notice. His gaze remained fixed on the overhead panel, heart pounding, not from fear but from excitement. This was more than a dream come true. This was real. Back in his seat, Kai buckled in again, replaying every second. He didn't know it yet, but that quiet cough behind him had just changed everything. Clouds hung thick around the aircraft as it cruised at 35,000 feet. The once smooth ride turned rough. A sudden jolt shook the cabin. Drinks spilled, trays rattled, and startled murmurs rippled through the passengers. The seatbelt signs flickered on with a chime, followed by the captain's steady voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some turbulence. Please remain seated. Kai looked out the window, watching the wings flex in response to the shifting air currents. He wasn't afraid, just alert. He could tell from the pitch and roll that the plane had entered a storm system. Not dangerous on its own, but unpredictable. Another violent lurch. Gasps filled the cabin. The plane dipped sharply, then steadied. Something was wrong. In the cockpit, the captain reached for his chest, eyes widening. A sudden tightness surged through him. He gasped, his hand dropping from the yoke. Beside him, the co-pilot turned, confused, then slumped forward without warning, head striking the panel. Inside the cabin, Maya felt it instantly. Something was off, not just turbulence. She moved to the intercom, called into the cockpit. No response. She tried again. Silence. She turned to a nearby flight attendant. Watched the cabin. Her voice was firm, her steps fast. When she opened the cockpit door, the sight hit her like a slap. The captain was slumped to the side, unconscious. The co-pilot wasn't moving. The controls trembled under their weight. Back in the cabin, overhead compartments rattled open. The plane tilted slightly. Then came a hiss and a drop. Oxygen masks fell. Screams. Maya stumbled back into the cabin, breath short, eyes wide. She grabbed the intercom and spoke, trying to keep calm. Everyone, please stay seated. Fasten your seatbelts. Oxygen masks are in place. Help is being contacted. Remain calm. But her face betrayed the truth. This wasn't routine. This was uncharted territory. She turned, her voice sharp now, slicing through the chaos. Is anyone here a pilot? The question hovered in the air. Heads turned. Silence. Eyes scanned the cabin. A child cried. An elderly man gripped his chest. Flight attendants looked at one another, helpless. Then movement. Kai stood. At first, no one noticed. Then Maya did. Her brow furrowed. Kai, sit down. I can help. Her mouth opened to protest. But he stepped forward, steady despite the shaking floor. You said I knew the systems. I've studied everything. Navigation, stabilizers, auto throttle. I can help. Just let me try. Passengers stared. Some scoffed. Others simply watched in stunned disbelief. Maya hesitated. This was madness. But she had seen something in that boy's eyes earlier. Clarity, precision, focus. And right now, she had no other option. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She reached for the cockpit door, then turned back. Follow me. And with that, the fate of Flight 87 shifted into the hands of a 12-year-old boy. The cockpit door clicked shut behind them, sealing out the rising panic in the cabin. Kai stepped inside, eyes scanning the panels. The scene was tense, warning lights blinking, the controls unguarded, and both pilots still unresponsive. The hum of systems filled the space, broken only by the alert chimes echoing through the flight deck. Maya hovered behind him, torn between duty and disbelief. For a moment, she didn't move. She had brought a child into the cockpit. A child. But then she looked at him, not as a boy, but as someone strangely at home here. "Do you know what you're doing?" she asked, voice low, fragile. Kai didn't answer right away. He slid into the left seat. His fingers hovered over the control yoke, steady. Then he turned slightly. "I need the flight manual." And the radio. Maya grabbed the thick binder from its compartment and handed it over. Kai flipped through the sections with surprising speed, stopping at autopilot override. His hand reached for the headset. With effort, he synced to the radio and spoke. "This is Flight 87. Pilot and co-pilot are unresponsive. Requesting immediate emergency guidance. My name is Kai Thompson. I'm 12. I've been trained on flight simulators. I need instructions to stabilize and land this aircraft." There was a pause, dead air, like even the ground control couldn't process what they'd just heard. Then, "Flight 87, we read you. Kai, maintain altitude at current heading. We'll guide you through." Kai nodded once, as if he'd done this 100 times. Outside the cockpit, his parents sat frozen. Ava's hands trembled. Ethan leaned forward, trying to see through the narrow opening. They knew their son loved aviation. But this wasn't a simulation. This was real. In the cockpit, Kai adjusted the trim, took the yoke gently, and breathed in. He checked pitch and altitude. The plane was still climbing unevenly. He disengaged the autopilot, steadied the throttle, and began regaining control. Ground control walked him through each step. Maya stood by, handing him checklists, her voice a whisper when she finally said, "You've got this, Kai." He didn't look at her. He didn't look scared either. Minutes passed like hours. The storm clouds began to break. A strip of sunlight cut through the window, washing the flight deck in gold. Slowly, the aircraft responded to Kai's hands. Less shaking, less dip in altitude, more precision. He brought it back to level. In the cabin, passengers clung to armrests, but the panic had subsided. A strange calm set in. No one knew how, but the plane had stopped falling. In the cockpit, the boy who once dreamed of flying wasn't dreaming anymore. He was flying. And somewhere between fear and instinct, something shifted, not just in the plane, but in every soul on board. Flight 87 had found its pilot. The runway stretched ahead like a narrow promise, flanked by blinking lights and anticipation. Kai's hand stayed firm on the yoke, his voice calm as he repeated instructions relayed by ground control. Altitude, check. Flaps, adjusted. Landing gear, engaged. Inside the cabin, a heavy silence replaced the earlier panic. The passengers, eyes wide and knuckles white, could feel the descent. Every turn of the aircraft brought them closer to the unknown and to the boy guiding them through it. Ava leaned into Ethan, unable to speak. He wrapped an arm around her, eyes fixed on the curtain shielding the cockpit, as if staring hard enough might anchor their son to safety. The airport tower cleared the runway. Flight 87, you're clear to land. Wind is steady. You're doing great, Kai. He exhaled, lips pressed into a thin line. This was it. The approach. The aircraft descended, guided by a steady grip and instinct honed from hours spent studying cockpit layouts and flight mechanics. The nose dipped slightly, then leveled. The runway loomed closer. The wheels struck the tarmac with a jolt. Too fast, a little uneven, but it held. Tires screeched. The plane bounced once, then settled. Kai adjusted, applied the brakes. The aircraft groaned in protest, skidding across the asphalt until finally, with a deep rumble, it stopped. For a second, the world stood still. Then cheers. First one clap, then another. A wave of applause surged through the cabin, rising like a chant. Some passengers sobbed openly. Others shouted words of thanks toward the front. Kai remained in the pilot's seat, hands trembling now that the danger had passed. Sweat clung to his forehead. His breath came in short bursts. Maya turned to him, eyes shining. She didn't speak. She just reached out, wrapped him in a tight embrace, and held on. "You did it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You actually did it." Outside, Sirens wailed. Emergency vehicles raced across the runway. Paramedics stormed in, rushing toward the cockpit. The real pilots were removed carefully. Medics confirmed the captain had suffered a heart attack. The co-pilot had collapsed from a previously undiagnosed medical condition. Neither could have continued the flight. Cameras arrived moments later. News vans pulled up outside the terminal. Reporters jostled for space behind the barricades. Microphones raised, eyes scanning for the story's unlikely hero. Kai emerged from the plane, flanked by his parents and Maya. The flashes began instantly. Questions flew, but he didn't answer any of them. He looked dazed, half in disbelief that it had really happened. By nightfall, screens across the world flashed the same headline. 12-year-old hero saves Flight 87. And somewhere in the chaos of reporters, paramedics, and flashing lights, a quiet voice cut through the noise. "I wasn't supposed to fly today," Kai said. "But I think I was meant to." And just like that, a boy's dream touched the sky and landed. Morning sun spilled over the marble steps of the White House as invited guests. Officials and journalists filled the Rose Garden. Flags stirred gently in the breeze. The atmosphere was formal, yet buzzing with anticipation. Everyone knew this was no ordinary ceremony. Standing beside his parents, Kai adjusted the collar of his suit, borrowed, slightly big at the shoulders but clean and pressed. His fingers toyed with the edge of a folded paper in his pocket, one of his old cockpit sketches. It felt like a lucky charm now, a reminder of where it all began. To his right, Maya Singh stood tall in uniform, pride and awe etched across her face. She gave Kai a small nod, one that said everything without words. He returned it with a nervous smile. A hush fell as the band struck a short note. President Julian Stiles stepped up to the podium. Regal, composed, but visibly moved, he addressed the crowd with calm authority. "Yesterday, this country witnessed something extraordinary," he began. "Not from a soldier or a scientist, not even from an experienced pilot, but from a boy. A 12-year-old who kept his head when others lost theirs. A boy who studied, prepared, and rose to meet the kind of moment most of us never imagined facing." The audience leaned in. He didn't just take control of a falling plane. He gave hope to every child who's ever been told they're too young, too small, or too inexperienced. Today, we honor that courage. President Stiles turned toward Kai, holding out a navy blue box. "Kai Thompson, for your bravery, presence of mind, and extraordinary service to your fellow citizens, I award you the Presidential Medal of Heroism." Applause erupted as the president fastened the medal around Kai's neck. Cameras flashed. Reporters called his name. Somewhere in the distance, a jet flew overhead, leaving a faint trail across the sky. And the president continued, "To ensure his dreams take flight, I'm proud to announce that Kai will receive a full scholarship to the National Academy of Aeronautics. Let this be the beginning, not the end, of a remarkable journey." Kai's eyes widened. His parents stared in stunned joy. Maya clapped the loudest. Stepping to the mic, Kai hesitated. The garden grew quiet again. "I wasn't trying to be brave," he said. "I just wanted to help. I love airplanes. I studied because I dreamed of flying. I never thought I'd be here." He looked at the president, then the crowd. "But if this proves anything, it's that it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're ready, and the world needs you, step up." Cheers followed him down the steps. The medal shone on his chest. The sketch still sat in his pocket. And for the first time, Kai didn't feel like a dreamer. He felt like a pilot. The runway stretched beyond the horizon, a ribbon of promise under the clear morning sky. At the edge of it, the Flight Academy campus buzzed with quiet purpose. Students moving between hangars, instructors calling out commands, aircraft humming in the background. Kai stood near a gleaming simulator building, now dressed in a crisp student pilot uniform. The embroidered wings on his chest didn't yet carry the weight of experience, but they bore something just as powerful: possibility. His steps were steady, purposeful. Gone was the boy nervously flipping through manuals. In his place walked someone transformed, not just by the past, but by what lay ahead. Each footfall echoed the journey he'd taken, from a sketchpad on the vacation tarmac to the moment the world first heard his name. Inside, The simulator waited, life-sized, high-tech, glowing with anticipation. It wasn't the sky, but it was close. The cockpit door stood open, beckoning. He paused for a moment, taking it all in. A gentle voice called from behind. "Ready, cadet?" Kai turned. An instructor stood with a clipboard and a knowing smile. "I've been ready," Kai replied, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. Then, as if rehearsed for years, he added, "This is just the beginning." From a distance, Ethan and Ava watched through the glass. They said nothing, but their faces said everything. Ava blinked back tears. Ethan simply placed a hand on her shoulder. For them, the world had shifted too. They weren't just parents anymore. They were witnesses to the unfolding of something rare. In the hallway, a display board flashed photos of historic aviators. Someone had added a new frame, a shot of Kai stepping off Flight 87, medal around his neck. Beneath it, the caption read, "Courage knows no age." As Kai settled into the simulator's pilot's seat, his fingers instinctively found their place on the controls. The systems powered up, switches flicked, gauges came alive. Familiar territory. But this time, it wasn't emergency. It wasn't survival. It was purpose. Through the window, clouds drifted lazily above the mountains in the distance. The world waited, not for another crisis, but for the quiet unfolding of greatness. The simulator doors closed. The engines hummed, and the camera slowly pulled back, past the runway, over the academy, through the skies, until Kai became a small, certain figure pressing forward toward the life he had always imagined. The screen faded to black. 3 words appeared, bold and still. "Inspired by true events." A pause. Then, as if carried by the wind, the sound of a young pilot's voice echoed one last time. "Clear for takeoff." If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Kai's courage? Or Maya's brave decision? Did Ethan and Ava's support move you? Would you have trusted a 12-year-old in the cockpit? Tell us below. Don't forget to honor young heroes like Kai who remind us that greatness has no age. Stay tuned for more emotional journeys, real-life inspirations, and uplifting tales that will restore your faith in the impossible.